Former New York Times opinion editor Bari Weiss is examining the impact identity politics and critical race theory have on students in some of the country's most prestigious schools.
She writes, quote, "The most important consequence of the woke ideology isn't a lesser English curriculum. It's that the ideology has changed children's self-conception."
Princeton University professor Robert George is a founding member of the Academic Freedom Alliance, and he joins us now. Professor, thank you so much for being here this morning. Really appreciate it. We're going to get to that alliance in a moment because it's really important. But let me read one more portion of the Bari Weiss op-ed and get your response. Here's another part of what she writes. She said, "Children learn how the new rules of the woke work. The idea of lying in order to please a teacher seems like a phenomenon from the Soviet Union. But the high schoolers I spoke with said that they do versions of this, including parroting views they don't believe in assignments so that their grades don't suffer." Professor, is this something we see?
It's something we see, and it's something we should be deeply, deeply concerned about. There is all the difference in the world between education and indoctrination. Indeed, indoctrination is the very antithesis of education. And this is what Bari Weiss has put her finger on. At some of the best schools in the nation, both public schools and private schools, even the most elite private schools, especially the most elite private schools, students are forbidden from saying what they truly believe, either formally or by informal pressure from peers and from teachers. And sometimes they're even forced to say things that they don't believe. Well, this is simply not education. For education to occur, we need an atmosphere of freedom, not an atmosphere of fear and intolerance.
Yeah, you know, Professor, I worked in one of those elite private schools, and it was mind-blowing. Some of what I saw up close very much mirrors what Bari Weiss is expressing. And you've been teaching at Princeton yourself for 36 years. So what are you seeing in college classrooms? Are you seeing the same phenomenon bleed over from high school to college?
We are. Indeed, students are coming in nowadays. I've seen this in the last 5 years, really, in very many cases with their heads stuffed filled with ideology, or stuff full with ideology. They're not considering or even interested in considering the best that is to be said on the competing sides of questions, which is the essence of education, considering the arguments on the competing sides. And part of the job now of a university professor, which has always been part of the job, but it's even more urgent now, is to open students' minds. The trouble is a lot of students are engaging in self-censorship. Even when they begin in their hearts and minds to question the established orthodoxies, the dogmas on campus, this new fundamentalist religion that seems to have taken hold all the way going down into kindergarten, even when they begin to question, they fear saying out loud what they are believing in their minds and hearts. And that kind of self-censorship is also extremely damaging to education.
That self-censorship, Professor, might be the end of the line of censorship, but there are other students looking to censor other people, including professors. We've seen the videos from Evergreen College or even Yale,
Yes.
Professors surrounded by their own students being hectored. And of course, there are many administrators and professors who are losing their jobs over these sort of, mob outrage incidences. But I know that you are working on something called the Academic Freedom Alliance is supposed to address or attempt to address some of these issues.
The Academic Freedom Alliance, which launched just this week, and I'm very excited about, begins with 200 professors from universities across the country and of all different points of view, from the left to the center to the right. Professors who are joined together believing we've got to do something to fight back against this climate of fear and intolerance, which is undermining the mission of universities as scholarly and teaching institutions. And what we're doing is vowing to fight with each other, to stand with each other, to treat an attack on one as an attack on all, not only for the safety of ourselves as individual professors who need to be able to speak our minds and teach as we see fit in the classroom, but also for the sake of education as a whole.
Imagine that, professors having to fight to profess. And that's exactly, Robbie George, what you're doing. Full confession, a professor of mine at Princeton, and one of the very best, even though I was not one of his very best students. He is one of the best. Robbie George, congratulations on the Academic Freedom Alliance. Keep us posted, please.